Just as a reminder, I hope everyone's doing well, first of all. But just as a reminder, we've been discussing this. I was not here except by video last Thursday.
Hello.
Hello?
Um, it was echoing.
Oh, okay. All right.
We
Uh,
were coming in the room.
we'll get it all set. But I did give out the review on Tuesday, and I sent it to everyone's email, and it was also on Blackboard. So that's Unit 4, right? So we're all on the same page. That's what we're going to review quickly here in just a moment. And if you will take some time and look over Unit 4, we're going to review fairly quickly, and then we'll take Unit 4 exam, and then we're going to forge on with Unit 5 here. So that's the skinny of today. I'll say this to everyone. If you don't have the Unit 4 review, you somehow were in the twilight zone, caught, and you couldn't get it in your email or Blackboard, or you weren't here the Tuesday before a week ago. I do have copies. Your facilitators probably have copies for you. You can have this time to quickly look over it. We're going to do a fairly quick review, and this review will be a little quicker than before. Next, Unit 5, I'll talk about that here in a moment. That review will be a little quicker, and then we're going to be right at the end. So it's hard to believe. Anyway, take time today, right now, this moment, and look over everything and see if you have questions, and then we'll review together here in a few moments. But if you need a sheet for the review, if you'd like to have a piece of paper to look at, come get one. still having trouble getting an image there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Do you see us?
No.
Can you see us now?
Yes, absolutely. Excellent.
Okay. Okay. No, what happened?
Can y'all hear me clearly? As it seems to be cutting out. Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. We can hear you in plain view.
Okay, Plainview, thank you. Is that Judy?
Yes, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to hear your voice. I'm glad Celeste was able to help you and glad you're back.
Thank you so much.
Lubbock, can y'all hear me well?
We got you.
All right, excellent. Good. All right. We'll get started here in just a sec. All right, folks, things we're excited about Thanksgiving. There's some schools that have all this week off, but we work harder than they do, right? Well, we've got to. All right, so much has happened, so much is going to happen. I was looking at my schedule, and I've tried to stay on target, even though it's been hard. I was gone last Thursday, and I appreciate the technology, so I just stayed after last Tuesday's class a week ago and recorded the lecture that you hopefully watched for Thursday's class. But that material we'll go over here in just a moment. But here we are on the 23rd of November, hard to believe. But we've got today's class, and then of course we'll enjoy Thanksgiving. Hopefully you'll be with family and friends on Thursday, and you'll maybe eat just a little, maybe too much. Not too much, but a little bit. Enjoy it, and enjoy time with your family and time of giving thanks. And in a week from today, we'll gather together again, and we'll have, after the test today, I'll begin Unit 5 lecture. A week from today, I'll give you the rest of that lecture, and then I'll also give you the notes a week from today for that. But then on the following Thursday, and this is kind of rare for me to give an exam on Thursday, you will have the exam for Unit 5. That's December 2nd. Still next month, right? But it's pretty close, actually. And then we'll do that review and exam for Unit 5. And that's that Thursday, December 2nd, just to give you a heads up. And then make a note of that if you need to. Then we'll begin the final exam lecture. And then on the next Tuesday, I'll probably give you the notes, the review notes on that Thursday, a week from Thanksgiving on the 2nd, for the final exam. And then I'll finish the lecture on that Tuesday, and then the next Thursday, December 9th, we'll have the final exam. And we'll finish before finals week, so you can focus on your other classes for finals week. Sad to say, we're that close, right? Counting today, 4 classes, that's all. Hard to believe. It's been a whirlwind. Since I saw you last, bless you, I saw you last Tuesday, it's been a whirlwind for me. And I've tried to keep my head together, and I've worked on the material, because I've had to rewrite all this from what I normally do. I've had to redo all my presentations because the powers that be chose a new textbook, and I thought the old one was good, so I've tried to fill in the gaps. But I've been working on that. But I left last Wednesday, went to Grapevine, and I've had a job pending there for almost 2 years to put up a tile mural. And so my wife and I had everything primed and ready after a little over a week after doing our mosaic. And we put up a much smaller ceramic tile mural. I'll try to show you pictures of that later. I don't even have them on my phone. But we'll do that. We did that together and then got it grouted, sealed, and everything while we were gone. But I also saw my doctor in Plano, and then I saw my sweet mom and was with my sisters. But the main reason I had planned to go anyway, we just kind of rolled all this in together because that's such a long trip, is the memorial for my cousin in East Texas, my cousin who was just younger than me. And so we went to that, and it was a very, very sweet service and time to be with family. Sad time, but I got a call on the way there, and my cousin's husband, my cousin was the husband. My cousin's wife. You can tell I'm a little bit, anyway, I'll try to get my facts straight on the things that matter here. My cousin's wife called me and she said, our pastor can't do the service. I have a big favor to ask you. And I said, if I can help her, please let me know. She said, could you do the service for Jimmy, my cousin? And I said, I would be honored to. And we talked for a little bit, and then I hung up the phone. I told my wife, who was driving then, I said, how am I going to do this? I can't even think straight. I'm so tired. And she said, God will give you the words you need to say. And so we did that. And it was a blessing to be able to do that and speak there. And it was hard. It was hard for me. But it was also very special too. So I've come back from that, and then bless you again. Here we are, and glad you could make it. And here we are. So I'll try to think as clearly as I can. Y'all call me on it if I don't. Say, wait, Mr. Hope, what did you say? So I'm going to try to keep going, and I'm glad to be here with y'all. Now, let's jump right into this Unit 4. It's just one chapter. You think, well, Mr. Hope, this is pretty quick. You did this. But it's just one chapter. But the thing about it is it covers a lot of time, right? From the earliest prehistoric art to the beginning of Christianity, to the end of the Roman age. So it's a lot of time, and a lot is covered there. But let's look at this. Prehistoric art doesn't mean there wasn't history. It wasn't prehistory. There's always been history, because I like to think of it this way. History is the story of people's lives, isn't it? It's his story or her story. It's what one of my professors said one time. Come in. And so history is really just the story of people's lives. And you look at all the cultures and the different things, but it's just day-to-day life and people's survival and the things that they create. And art is one of the reasons that we look at this period, because they were responding to things that were all around them and trying to show significance and make objects that proved not only that they were there, but that they were thinking and that they were people with deep thoughts and deep feelings. So when you say prehistoric art, it means art before recorded history. There may not have been a written language, but there was still history, right? It wasn't before history. I've had people say, well, prehistoric means before history. No, it doesn't. There's always history. So it was just before recorded history, before maybe a written language. And the term Stone Age means what? Why did we call it the Stone Age? They used what? Stone tools. And some of those stone tools were pretty amazing things. In fact, I'll talk about that later on, but I'm not going to ask you to tell me the difference between Mesolithic and Neolithic and so on, the different Stone Ages. If we were in history or art history, we would go into that, and I'd hold you accountable for letting me know the difference in those terms. I'll just mention them here so we can kind of have a basic idea of where things are. And I just lost my connection. All right. So I'm moving down the page here pretty quickly. So we have the cave paintings of Lascaux. You remember that? And the cave paintings of Lascaux, they told the story of the animals that the people hunted, but why were those paintings significant to them? Did they just think, oh, these are beautiful animals? Well, they might have, but why were they significant artworks? They had to survive with those animals, right? And this kind of goes against our grain a little bit, but I think, let me get this back on so it'll be ready. One of the things about this was that the people, and get my camera right here. There we go. And again. So I can get my split screen. It's still not going to do it. So the thing about these animals that these people depicted in these cave paintings, I'm sorry, here we go, well, I'll use that. The thing about this was these people not only hunted the aurochs, which is this huge, they're like longhorn cattle. They were the forerunner really of longhorn cattle. They trace it back to that area in Spain, and those were brought over and they became the longhorn cattle you see in these ranches today. And they're the symbol of this power of the longhorn. But they also have found large piles of horse bones. Now you see those horses, you think, well, the people rode horses. They did not domesticate the horse. Not till much later. But they were good eating. That's what those people thought. Because they found those horse bones in large piles and they have butcher marks on them. Now that kind of goes against our grain, doesn't it? You go in the streets of Paris.
Sir, are we
Yes,
supposed to be
yes.
seeing a picture?
No picture.
Okay.
No picture.
Okay.
Just me right now. So you see those shops, and in the restaurants, you can buy horse meat, and you can buy horse meat in the restaurant. Yeah, My Little Pony when I was growing up. No, couldn't think of that. But anyway, these people, it was significant to them, and so you have these amazing paintings, and I talked about the discovery of Lascaux, right? These boys, but who's the real discoverer of the caves? Robot, right? Not R2-D2, but Robot the dog. And he found the opening to the cave by supposedly following a ball in there. And I'm just going down the page here, and these are things I talked about and stressed when we did this lecture a week ago. And then we think that those paintings served as some sort of ritual to ensure a good hunt. And they've even found footprints that looked like maybe people were doing some sort of a ritual dance. We don't know that. We're just, they're taking clues and trying to fill in the gaps there. If any of you need I'm not going to go to that site and pull it up here, but if any of you need extra points, you'd like to pad your grade a little bit, one good way of doing it is go to the Lascaux official site. Make sure you choose the ending that says EN, those two letters. If you pick the ending that says FR and you're not fluent in French, you'll be frustrated as can be. But if you choose the one that says EN, you can navigate through that cave as if you were walking in there. You can look up at the ceiling, you can look to the right and to the left in different parts of the cave. It has a map for it. So you can go to that site, and if you have trouble with that, if you'd just like to do it, but if you'd like to write something about 2 or 3 of the paintings that you see and send that to me in a coherent form, I will give you points, okay? So, let's move on. These Venuses we looked at, these little sculptures, most of them very small. They could be carried in a pocket or a pouch. They probably didn't have pockets in those days, right? Or a pouch of some kind. But those little sculptures, mainly of feminine forms, emphasize that women were the ones who had children, and that maybe that ensured not just the idea of fertility, but the tribe. And bearing children was a very important thing, and to have children and have the family group enlarged and so on. we still think it's important, right? So, my son and his wife just had their 4th anniversary, our youngest son. Neither of them had ever married. They'd been close to that point before. But guess what people asked them? They just had their 4th anniversary dinner and had a special getaway. What do people ask them? When are you going to have babies? And they say, well, maybe soon. We'll see if God blesses. Anyway, and I'm not going to ask you to tell me the difference between Neolithic and Mesolithic and so on, but one of the things that we looked at during Neolithic times was Stonehenge. Those stones are in a ring. They're kind of in ruin, but still a significant site. And you see those uprights and those pieces of stone across. Some people say that's post and lintel, but what do we call that? A megalith. Lithic always means Neolithic, Mesolithic, so on. Lithic means stone, right? So a megalith, I mean, they have this thing on the Discovery Channel, mega builders, right? It's massive things. So megalith is the term used for a large stone monument like this, like Stonehenge. We talked about historic civilizations again, the written language. So after prehistory, we have not just the objects that people left or the paintings or the sculptures, the sites that they left and archaeological evidence, but we have a written recorded history. We talked about the location of the Fertile Crescent, and let me plug this in, and this might be of some help to you, because so many people get confused by this. I never like to see that. Scan and fix. No. Here we go. So, the Fertile Crescent is what we call that area where modern day Syria and Iran and Iraq are, and they follow the crescent shape, the curve of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which is referred to in the Bible, and boy, that's slow. But that's the Fertile Crescent, and some people confuse that. Many students, in fact, confuse that with the Fertile Ribbon. And the Fertile Crescent refers to this area, and it shows there, but I'm going to scroll down here a little bit to this. And this area right here, that purple area is the Fertile Crescent, but this shows it a little bit better. And you see that green area that follows, and you see the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and Akkad and Sumer and those places, Babylon, referred to in the ancient texts in the Bible also. But that's where modern day Iraq and Iran and Syria and those countries are. That's the Fertile Crescent. Now if you look to your left, you'll see Lower Egypt there. That is the area where my cursor is. That's the Fertile Ribbon, because it's that ribbon of the Nile River. Don't get them confused. Right? Hold it up your head like, I don't know if you've ever seen Harry Crumb and John Candy. Okay, you got it now. Okay. All right. Anyway, so that was the area, 2,500 to 3,000 BC, that was the area of early civilization. And there are places earlier than that around the world, but that's the area where they built these huge temples, they built massive cities, and they had a great culture, and they had a written language. And if you're looking at the second page, we looked at the writings where they had temples like this. Here's what it looks like now, the Ziggurat of Ur. And you had this idea of the cuneiform. And remember that term? We have the Stele of Hammurabi. And so Hammurabi, the ruler, 18th century BC, said there needs to be a law that applies to everybody. And this is really a change. He was still the ruler, he was still the king, but he said it's important. In this country, I said this the other day, we have the rule of law, right? And some people act like they've never heard that term, and they may not have. But we enjoy the rule of law, don't we? Because if you're stopped for something, you have rights, correct? And they assume that you're innocent until what? Proven guilty. That was not always the case, and there's a huge portion of this world today that we live in where that is not true. You go just a little ways from good old USA, and that's not true. And I think it's true of Mexico. The rule of law is not exactly the same. So, you get in trouble down there, bow down and pray for help. And maybe you can find it. But Hammurabi said, and here's Hammurabi, he said, the law applies to everyone, even me. I'm the king, I have all power, I can say something and it's done. But he said, these laws apply even to me. So, in this cuneiform, it was written down like that. So you have this written language, and the Code of Hammurabi is these 281 laws that were written down. And it really is, parallels our Constitution in many places. So, these are laws that, there's this thing called, there's a book that was written long ago by Samuel Rutherford called Lex Rex, which means the law, Lex, is King Rex. And really it's what our law in the United States, and really it reflects what is here. The law is over the king. And really, the law, just like we talk about in inalienable rights and so on, and very much what they talked about here in Hammurabi, is that the law was God-given. And the people got those rights from God. And so it was handed down through the ruler to the people. And the people had the benefit of that law. Now, let's go down to, and you remember, right, the Fertile Crescent, right? So you know the difference between the civilizations there, and we'll come back to this, and ancient Egypt, and where the Fertile Ribbon is. And it's desert, it's the Sahara Desert, it's northern Africa, dead desert. But because of the life-giving waters of the Nile, you have this fertile ribbon. They grow cotton there. I don't know if you've seen these, MyPillow guy who has these Giza sheets, Giza cotton, it's supposed to be soft. I personally think our cotton is better than theirs, but anyway. You have the fertile ribbon there that grows all sorts of food, and it makes this country rich, and it made it rich in ancient times. That's the fertile ribbon. And so we talked about that. We talked about of course, the significance of the pyramids and this amazing culture that grew up there, and this idea of what the Egyptians did. And the writing, these hieroglyphs that you see in paintings like this and like this, those hieroglyphs were deciphered because of what? This Rosetta Stone and this genius, Jean-Francois Champollion, this Frenchman who said, okay, you've got three languages there. I know the Greek at the bottom, but maybe the ancient writings of the Egyptians match the really ancient writings of the hieroglyphs. And so he deciphered it by figuring this out. So that's the Rosetta Stone, talks about there. Then we looked at this idea of the importance of mummifying the body and taking out the internal organs and wrapping the body, preparing it for burial. And so it could be buried in just wrappings, or it could be a royal burial like King Tut had, buried in the gold coffin and so on. But this idea of frontality, where you have the strange looking bodies like this, the torso is facing forward. The head is facing to the side, but you see the eye always as a front-facing eye, because the eye was really symbolic of the sun god and so on. So this idea of frontality that I talk about here was very important, and that it was preparing the body to be as perfect as possible for the soul to re-enter, for the Ka to re-enter. And if you say that the Egyptians believed in reincarnation, that's wrong. They did not. They believed, much like Christians believe, that the soul was to be reunited with the body someday. And so that's a very important thing. And that's why they went to great lengths to preserve the body. Didn't work out quite so well, but I mean, 2,000 years is a long time, right? But King Tut's mummy was prepared, and he had all this jewelry on him. One of the greatest discoveries in all time was the discovery by Howard Carter, this guy you see here, and the tomb of King Tut. Because even though he was a minor king that only ruled about 9 years, you can only imagine the riches that would have been in the tombs in the Great Pyramid, and these rulers that were ruling for much longer. And here's this sort of minor king, and yet thousands of amazing objects, gold and semi-precious stones, and a gold coffin. That's a world beater, right? It is. So, pretty amazing. Now, I mentioned this, and I'll go back to this in just a moment, but this idea of the Aegean civilization and Aegean art. And people always thought Homer had written about Troy and the Helen of Troy and the Trojan Wars and so on, but they actually found Troy and this guy Heinrich Schliemann and his archaeologist Frank Calvert found this by following the writings of Homer, and found these great treasures and so on, amazing gold and so on. This is just a reproduction of the Trojan horse, but that city is still being excavated today. And if you've ever seen this movie, it's kind of fun to watch. But it's based on the story of Odysseus or Ulysses. That's the main character's name, right? And you have the blind seer, and you have all the different reflections of that in there. But anyway, so ancient Greece is in there. We talked about that. We talked about some of the different things that ancient Greece has very much a reflection on our culture today. Let me fast forward here. Egyptians stuck in there. We had already looked at these three classical orders. We had looked at the Parthenon. We talked about the construction of this building based on the golden section, the golden rectangle, the view of the Acropolis. It says here in your notes, and I said this in the lecture, no other culture has more influenced our culture today than ancient Greece. The laws, the structure of government that we have, very much is like theirs. I think ours is better, and there's a case to be made in many instances where it's better. But it reflects ancient Greece, and even the styles of buildings in these little towns like Levland are based on ancient Greece. It's kind of an amazing thing. And so we all hearken back to that as the epitome, the shining city on the hill of what's to be. And this idea, it's the measure of all things. It was about 1,000 years. That's a long time for a country to be in existence and to be at power. But there was only a time they called the Golden Age. How long was it? Only about 80 years. Not long. Only about 80 years. My grandpa lived 80 years. So that's not very long in 1,000 years there. But that was the time of the greatest achievement. And then we talked about all these different contributions, and they were contributions to the Roman style too. And you have these beautiful sculptures like Venus de Milo and Nike of Samothrace. And we talked about that winged goddess being the inspiration for that swoosh we call, but Nike, that's the winged messenger, right? But I talked to you about if you wanted to see the Parthenon, You don't have to go to Greece, do you? You just go to Nashville, Tennessee. Go to the Grand Ole Opry, yeah. Enjoy some country music twang, but then you go in there and you see the reproduction. We think this is what Athena Parthenos would have looked like, and that, I was looking at her feet, being as tall as I am. That's how huge this thing is. And that sculpture of Nike, the winged messenger there, 6 foot tall. Pretty amazing, really. You need to see it. It needs to be on your list. And of course, the thing about the Greek sculptures is they idealized everything, but the Romans said, let's be a little more real about it. Okay, we're wrinkles and all, right? And that's what they did. You'd never see a Greek sculpture like this. That's very Roman sculpture. And they used these life masks and death masks too, to remember people, and then they made these sculptures so realistic. I talked about the center of Rome, and you still have preserved there the Colosseum and the Roman Forum, and you can walk those ancient streets and get a feeling of that. But the reason we know so much about ancient Roman culture is because it was preserved entirely by Mount Vesuvius covering it up with volcanic debris. This is all dug out. It was 40 feet deep of volcanic ash and mud flow, and I showed you this. The green part's all that's been excavated. Who knows what they'll discover in our lifetime? And they won't dig it all out in our lifetime. They've been working on it for nearly 300 years. But Mount Vesuvius could do this again at any time. It rumbles every once in a while. Didn't while we were there. I was thankful of that. But all these ancient little villas are preserved perfectly, and the paintings and the mosaics and all are preserved. So you can go there and see what it was like. But even the people were preserved in their agony and so on. Now the Colosseum, we talked about this massive building. 50,000 spectators, that's a lot, right? That's a pretty big arena. And this thing was 600 feet long. That's 2 football fields. Pretty good size. It's amazing, really. And even though it's in ruins now, it's magnificent to walk in there and think of all the history and all the things that happened there and what it might have looked like. Down the hill from that Colosseum, that was it in its heyday, you see this basilica that was built by Constantine and Maxentius. They built these temples to themselves. They were the god, right? The emperor was the god. And that star shows where this giant sculpture of Constantine stood. But Constantine became tolerant of Christianity. He said, these people aren't bothering anyone. That's a reconstruction of what it looked like. It doesn't look like much there, but when you see it in scale to this, that was a big sculpture. Definitely. Most of it's destroyed. You see the knee on the left in the picture there, and part of the legs, and maybe one of the hands is still preserved. But the rest, who knows? Enemies come in and they do things like that. When Constantine came to power in 306 AD, he became tolerant of Christianity, but then he was persuaded to become a Christian, and his whole family were Christians. And so the Roman Empire changed the focus from this warlike, that's all they did. They went and took over other cultures and took all they had, made them subjects to the Roman Empire and the emperor. Well, Christianity came in and changed everything. And so the focus of it was entirely different. That's what we'll look at in Unit 5. Any questions about anything that you ever need a little more clarity about? All right, look over your notes for a couple of minutes or less, and then we'll take the test. And I assume that y'all got the test, right? Lubbock and Plainview?
Just a minute, sir.
Yes, I did.
Very good. All right. Well, let's go ahead and put away your notes, everyone, and we'll pass out the test. And as soon as everyone's finished, then I'll jump right in. We'll start Unit 5 and do as much as we can today. Multiple choice, some short answer, 20 questions, look over everything carefully. Y'all please let me know when everyone's finished. Thank you. And here's a tough bonus question. Once I get it right, there we go. Says, what contribution to history did Jean-Francois Champollion make? Say what? Don't forget the bonus. You'll let me know when you finished, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'll get these graded later and put the grades on Grade Center for you. Y'all didn't see your test from last time, did you? Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay, but I can show you if you'd like to see before you leave today. I just saw them in my book.
We're done in Plainview.
Thank you, Judy.
Lutheran Lubbock.
Excellent, thank you. All right, very good. I will get these graded as soon as I can later today maybe and get them on Grade Center. If you have any questions at any point, let me know about anything about your grades or whatever. That's something you could do for extra credit. But I'm going to put this up on screen here and I'm going to show this. I said I wouldn't, but if you do search, they changed this website and the URL often. Anyway, what I just did, I just tried this. I did Lascaux-virtual tour, and it pulled up the French one, but then when I clicked over here on the right, then it went to the English one. So here's a virtual tour, and you're in the cave. You can visit it now. Only a few scholars can visit there on occasion, and they do monitoring to make sure that the mold hasn't started growing again. But here you are, and it takes us a minute sometimes to run. But here we're in southern France, and we're having technical problems. Here's the Hall of the Bulls, though, and you're in it. There's the uniform panel, and you can navigate up and down and so on. Your computer works better than this old Dell that I've got here. But you can go, and you're in there. So it's very cool, and you can click on certain things. So I wanted to show you that, and then you can enlarge those and so on. But that's all I'll show. That's all I have time for today. Anyway, I was saying this earlier. I was asked to do this service. My cousin's wife had called and asked for me to do the service. It's very hard because I was close to my cousin, but I felt honored to do it. But I was telling students in this class face to face just a moment ago, my cousin died of amyloid disease, which was very rapid. It was kind of like ALS, but it hit him just within the last few months. But he was almost 12 pounds. So he's born with the struggle, he died with the struggle, but there was, my main message was, in the scriptures that I used, it was a message of hope. Now that's our last name, but we should all have hope every moment of every day and hope for the future. And so this goes from the time of the Roman Empire and all their gods and goddesses, they just came up with new ones all the time. And you had to pray to them and you had to do all these different things to have hope. And I heard a pastor say this one time. This used to be called the Age of Faith. Your text has a longer title, Art of the Middle Ages. I just slimmed it down to that. The Age of Faith. I heard a pastor say one time, people are going to believe in something, and they always have. But he said it changed with the coming of Christ, and not only Christ's life, his birth, his death, and his resurrection. It changed everything. And so people had hope. Now, we were looking at the Colosseum before. Let me put this on the slide here. Here's the Colosseum, and where this horrible, people were killed for entertainment. People cheered, and they raised their thumb or lowered their thumb. Can you imagine that? Now, I've been to wrestling events and things like that. Football is kind of like that. Kill them, people say. But this is the real deal. And people were cheering for people to be sacrificed. And that's why my wife was so sad when we were here. But you look up in the Colosseum today, and there's a cross there. And at night it's all lit, and there's the cross. And Easter, they set up a cross outside. And thousands of people gather here. And they walk up the street, they walk past the Pantheon that we looked at before, and this huge building that was a monument to all the gods, Pantheos. And then you come to the Vatican, and these people all go up there, and these throngs, thousands and thousands of them go, and they go to the Vatican, and they have worship for what? Celebration of the resurrection of Christ on Easter. So it went from one thing to the other, and that's pretty much a clear picture of what happened. So medieval art looks at a lot of things. So here's the world map of that era, but you see where the River Nile is, and you see where Jerusalem is, and you see Istanbul is there, and you see where the Boot of Italy is, and Rome, and Ravenna. And we'll talk about all those places, and then the British Isles, and you see a little town, you see London, you see this place we'll talk about called Lindisfarne, and you see the other places Paris and so on. So the thing about Constantine, I told you that his mother very likely was the one who became a Christian first, and she witnessed to him, and she said, this is something we all need to do, and explain to him. And there are things about visions that he had, and visions that Christ appeared and helped him be successful in battle. But here's this icon of Constantine and his mother, St. Helena. But people were worshiping Jesus in the catacombs and hidden places in homes, because it was under penalty of death before Constantine came along. So they would go down to the catacombs, and you could go on these tours. It's kind of creepy, spooky, whatever. But it was places where, yes, the bodies had been buried there, and sometimes they had dug up bodies because there's no more room in the cemeteries. They'd put the bones in there. So they call those ossuaries, and you can see some of them sealed off and some opened up, and they were reburied in places. But the Christians would meet there because it was safe. Romans were a pretty superstitious bunch. All these gods and goddesses and spirits and so on. But they would actually have places, you can see an ossuary up above there, where the skulls and the bones were, and part of that plaster has gone away. But you see also the decorations they made of the Christ the Good Shepherd. You see those fish symbols at the bottom? We call that the ichthus. You see that today I saw it on somebody's bumper here on campus. And you have these there, maybe? Give it a moment. Here we go. You see this symbol like this, right? And sometimes you'll see it with a cross here where the eye would be. That's an ichthus. But you see it in this slide. And it was painted there in the 1st century in places. And this is 3rd, 4th century. But contemporaneous with these early believers. And of course, the symbol of Christ, the Good Shepherd. And these paintings. And here's Christ depicted in, these are frescoes. That A for Alpha, that's the symbol for Omega. Christ is the beginning and the end, right? That's the beginning and the end of the alphabet for those people. And you find these, they'll be digging a new subway tunnel. They'll be digging a parking garage in 30, 40 feet below the street level. Wow, here's more catacombs they didn't know about. Here are these paintings like this, one of Peter and Paul, who both died there in Rome. Here's the Circus of Nero. Okay, so these big arenas they had for racing, and they would put people to death there for entertainment. That obelisk was brought from Egypt when Rome ruled Egypt. And they brought that there. I don't know how in the world they did this huge stone spire, but they carried many of them there. But they're all over the world. They're in Paris. They're in New York City. Ancient Egyptian obelisk. But they set this one up because it was a symbol of them conquering Egypt. And here's this Circus of Nero, this huge arena in ruins there in this picture. But I want you to look at this. Now that obelisk right at the center is where we just saw that, but near there is where it's possible that they put Peter to death for everyone to see. Here's the guy who was supposed to be the rock of the church, the foundation stone of the church, and here is the outline right up above that of the modern Vatican today. So right where there was this pagan site and where they had people put to death for entertainment, that was a place where Peter was executed, and that was also the place where they built the old St. Peter's and then the modern basilica on this Latin cross plan. Here's Caravaggio's depiction of it, and this, tenebrism painting. But Peter said, I'm not worthy to be crucified like my Lord, because that's what they said, you'll die on the cross. He said, crucify me upside down. That's the tradition. And so that's what's depicted here in this painting. But that was right on that site. Now, you see these icons, and I'm not referring to the text right now. I'll get back to that next time. But you see these iconic paintings that were symbols and done in this style with the halos and so on, showing the holiness of these. Here's the Virgin and Child. This monastery painting was done on Mount Sinai, where God gave the 10 Commandments. But we'll come back to this next time, a week from today, and I'll really be revved up to do this Unit 5. I'll give you the review notes then. I'm not going to clutter your sweet brains over the holiday. I want you to enjoy your Thanksgiving. Have a wonderful time. Think of the blessings we all have and enjoy it. Enjoy good food and fellowship, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Y'all take care. If anybody wants to see the test from last time, I got it. Okay, let me get my stuff together here so I don't lose anything. Yeah, here it is. Today. Y'all take care.
You too. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you. God bless y'all.